And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now, a little earlier on today, of course, we shared the footage from Sky News where Labour MP Bridget Phillipson came on, looked in the lens and told everybody that we, as a country, or them as the Labour government, played a huge and monumental role in the peace deal in Gaza. I came on and we've seen all the reaction and stated that certainly wasn't the case. And in fact, if anything, the UK and the Labour government almost scuppered proceedings out there in the Middle East. Now, there's another twist to this tale as a US ambassador has came out now and called her out directly and legit just said that she was chatting bollocks and chatting shit. So this is what happens when you lie and continuously lie. Your lies will be found out and you will be exposed. And in this case, a US ambassador has completely doxed her online. Let's have a watch of this footage and react to this, guys. But as always, please do hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for more. Now, just a little reminder, this is what she said. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said this about the UK government having been massively involved with the peace deal in Gaza.
We have played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. It's right that we do so because it's in all of our interest, including our own national interest, that we move to a lasting peace in the region.
Well, when you say behind the scenes, like what? I mean, it seems to everybody else in the world that this has been done by Trump and the Israelis and Hamas. What part did we play?
These are complex matters of diplomacy that we are involved in, but we do welcome and recognise the critical role that the American government played in moving us to this point. What matters now, of course, is how we move beyond this immediate end to the war, moving towards that lasting peace that we all want to see. And that is why we've recognised a Palestinian state, but why alongside that, we're committed to making sure that a safe and secure Israel endures.
The reason I ask this is because, as you say, we recognise a Palestinian state. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, said that actually made it more difficult to land the deal. What's really going on here? I mean, was that some sort of clever strategic double bluff? I mean, the Americans say we made it more difficult. You're saying that we played this key part. What's true?
Well, we believed as a government that it was the right thing to do to recognise the Palestinian state because of the way in which the conflict had developed over the last 2 years, that if that hadn't happened, we would be in a position where there would no longer be that viable option of a Palestinian state.
But the Israelis were furious with us. The Americans said that we actually hampered the deal. What was the positive role that we played? It
was the right thing to do, and we will always act as a government in that manner. I do obviously understand that not everyone agrees with that decision, but given the scale of the conflict and what needed to happen, we felt it was the right thing to do to recognise that Palestinian state. But I should also just emphasise that the reason this conflict, of course, this phase of the conflict has begun.
All right, that's enough. So again, I've actually watched this multiple times now, and I just keep on seeing new things. The guy's asking me a question. So what did we do behind the scenes? Well, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't come up with an answer. But as we already know, it was just spin. The UK nearly scuppered all the proceedings due to this fucking mob. Recognising Palestine as a state and rewarding terrorism. Now we've got Ambassador Mike Huckabee, of course, 2 million followers, verified account, and he's called her out publicly and said, I assure you, she's delusional. She can thank Donald Trump anytime just to set the record straight. Let's have a look at some of these comments. She knows she's lying. We know she's lying. She knew she was lying, and she just keeps lying. Cheeky bugger she is. This is what delusional looks like, acknowledging the horror, then proposing the reward, its root cause. But with regard to her, I mean, look, this is so hilarious that she's literally just been called out by a US ambassador just chatting absolute bollocks. And maybe next time, let's, of course, just acknowledge what Donald Trump actually did. Now, earlier I forgot to mention this Muppet again. Yeah, she's in the headlines for all sorts of things. But of course, the whole thing with regard to the Chinese spy case. Now, we reported to you a couple of days ago that essentially, Labour had covered up, and they're now saying and backtrack and say they knew nothing about it, despite it being a huge national security threat. And this is something that needs to be massively investigated. And actually, I'm surprised that the mainstream media haven't really been running with this story. There's not enough headlines with regard to it. This is Bridget Phillipson again talking about this morning.
So these are decisions and matters for the Crown Prosecution Service, who take decisions about whether or not to proceed with the prosecution. It's worth just pointing out that because this took place back in 2023, it was on the basis of the legislation in force then. We now have the National Security Act, so the law has moved on in order to allow for prosecutions. But this ultimately was a matter for the Crown Prosecution Service. We are very disappointed that the prosecutions didn't proceed, but that is unfortunately where we are.
But we've had various different people, including our own security services, including Simon Case, who is in charge of the civil service, saying that the government intervened in this case so that the case collapsed by not suggesting that China could be described as a threat. They carry out cyber attacks, they steal IP, they have secret police stations spying on Hong Kong dissidents, they have bounties on the heads of Hong Kong dissidents, and indeed they sanction members of parliament. In what world is China not a threat?
Well, we are clear as a government that China presents opportunities, but challenges and threats alongside that.
So it is a threat?
Yeah, there are threats and challenges that come. It's why we take a strategic approach to China. And it's why, alongside that, we are clear that this government's number one responsibility is to the national security of our country. Of course, we need to engage with China. They're a big economy. But what comes first is our national security.
So if China is a threat, then this spying trial shouldn't have been collapsed by the government not saying that it was a threat.
China presents threats and challenge, but we also believe that China presents opportunities in terms of our trading relationships with Chinese businesses.
But if China does present threats, then it is a threat. We agree on that. Therefore, the spying trial shouldn't have been collapsed.
The trial and the evidence that was connected to that predates this government, goes back to 2023 and was ultimately a matter for the Crown Prosecution Service.
I know, but the civil service, head of the civil service then, Simon Case, said it was designated as a threat. So China is a threat to Britain.
I can't speak to what Simon Case has said. All I can make clear is that we are disappointed the prosecutions didn't go ahead, but this does predate this government. It goes back some years and it was a decision taken by the Crown Prosecution Service.
Is the Chinese super embassy going to be opened in Tower Hamlets?
This is a process that's underway. It's a quasi-judicial process. I'm afraid I just can't comment on it.
And do we know if any compensation was paid to Jingye when they ran British steel into the ground? Apparently a sum of £1 billion has been mentioned.
Again, I'm not in a position to comment on that. What I can say is that we did, of course, intervene to make sure that British Steel's future was secured at Scunthorpe.
This whole scandal reflects very badly on the government, doesn't it?
I mean, this case, as I say, goes back some years, and therefore I don't think it's quite so straightforward as that, no.
Blame, blame, blame. Obviously, they want to blame it of course, it's a huge scandal and it's not getting the recognition that it deserves. But she's a muppet. And would it be interesting to see, well, if I told you that she was running for Deputy Prime Minister of the country, would that surprise you? Well, she is. Bridget Phillipson. She's been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons today. And of course, just lying, just chatting shit constantly on live television. And then getting humiliated for it by a US ambassador. So yeah, fuck you, Bridget Phillipson. Guys, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.